Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks, Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Set-a-Watch. And this particular set is the third set of the Forsaken Isles, and I will also talk a little bit about the app as well, and I'll show you that at the conclusion of this little rules overview that I'll be doing right here. Now, with that said, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. Additionally, thank you to Rock Manor Games for sending me this copy and sending me the app so I can make this video. Now, with that said, what this game is, this is a dice rolling and dice management / resource management adventure game in which you are taking on the role of 4 different heroes, though I only have one out here for the demonstration. Though I will point out that this box comes with all of these different heroes that you can play. And again, you will be playing with 4 of them every time. And what you're doing is you are adventuring across the land to slay the evil baddies, but at night, that's when things are dangerous. And so 3 of your heroes will go out and fight this big long line of bad guys, which are all set up right here. You'll notice that the box itself is actually the main part of the playboard. And you will win the game if at the very end of the last night of your journey, you are able to survive. If at least one hero is still alive, you will win the game. If they all died, then you have lost the game. Now, with that said, if you are not interested in how this game is played, just want to jump to my final thoughts, and then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. So as I mentioned, you will have 4 different heroes. And however, one of the 4 heroes will always be on camp duty, which means that you will take one of these tokens right here, and you will place it right here on the board, which is saying that they are manning the fire, because you have to have enough firelight so you can see what's going on. And then the other 3 heroes will do the night fighting phase. So let's talk about the camp phase first. And let's pretend that the Corsair here is staying. And everyone will have rolled their dice, like so. And I'll point out that there are some characters that use D12, some use D8s, and if you have some of the other sets, there's even some that use D4s. But so I have rolled my dice here, and what will happen is I will be placing them over here on the campfire board. I can put one here to chop firewood, which will send up my fire level by 2 for each one that I place. Anytime you place a die where there's a coin, you get to take that coin. I might come down here and I might do an equip action, which would allow me to change out my character skills that I have, because every character starts with 5. I could do a scout ahead action. And the way this one works is each successive die that you place has to be higher than the previous one. And that's going to allow you to scout ahead and look at the different locations that you might be going to and put some on the top or some on the bottom. Over here we have heal, which is very specifically a 6, and that will allow you to heal yourself, which means you take a damaged card and you'll be flipping it back over. The check map allows you to look at what the next locations are, what's coming up. I said earlier that the scout ahead dealt with locations. That's not true. It deals with the monsters that are coming. And that's pretty much what you're going to do with these locations. Now, once that's done, you're going to be going to a new location. And I'll just grab one right here. And sometimes they are good, like this one here. And so this one here would actually give me +1 to my fire level. And there would be 6 monsters in the line, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But sometimes they are not good, so I might also instead pull out something like this, which would have 7 bad guys in the line. There's a nice little benefit down here that you can get, but I would lose 4 on my fire track. And there's a whole bunch of different types of cards, and you'll be kind of going through them as you go through the game. Now, the only other thing that I want to very clearly point out on this game board here is the fire level. As the fire level gets higher, you see these different numbers. When you have met or passed them, that's going to tell you how many creatures in the line, which we're about to see, you are able to see at any given time. And for this example, we will just pretend that we are here at 8, so our line will be 2. And so what will happen is you'll take creatures and you will literally place them in a line. And I'm just going to put these 4 out for the sake of our example here. And as I said, we are able to see the first 2 because of our fire level of 2. And I'm going to re-roll my dice over here and use them on my Corsair. And just keep in mind, there are actually 3 heroes who are rolling dice and using dice as you go through. And so, as we look here, we'll see that there are abilities on all these different bad guys. A Lantern Goblin increased the number of creatures revealed by the campfire level by 1. So as long as he's out there, we would increase. So then we would take this one here, flip it over, and then we have a third one. Then we would notice that this one has a reveal ability, stun the adventurer with the lowest total die roll. We'll just pretend that's a different adventurer. So they would wind up taking a penalty. And this one, take the top harpy in the graveyard and add it face up to the end of the line. So if we killed any harpies in a previous turn, we'd get another one added over here. Then it would come to our turn to try to kill things. Now this character, as you can see right here, is a melee character, so they're going to be hitting the guy in front. And there's a couple things they can do. They could just spin their dice direct for damage. In this case, that would do 6 damage. And again, one more time as a reminder, other characters could spend their dice as well to do that kind of damage. But let's say, instead of doing that, I'd like to activate my abilities. And so, well, look here, and we'll see Sword Thrust. Deal damage equal to the sum of your total die results to the creature in the second position in line. So maybe I want to put my 1 here, and now this one's going to take 6, 9, 10 damage, and it would be defeated. This one would move on down, and we would flip the next one because of this Lantern Goblin, and then we have a summon. And there will be these summon cards in the deck, and that will cause you to pull something out of the Unhallowed deck, which tend to be more dangerous monsters. And so we would then replace that with that, and now we have a Hornbeetle. And you'll notice that if this one ever gets to the first position, then bad things happen to our fire. I could, if, say, I wanted to, instead of using a die on that, I could just flip it over and take damage and use it that way. Now I also have some other abilities here. So you have this Fire the Cannon, defeat the creature at the end of the line, then peek at a creature in the line. So maybe I want to put my 1 there and just automatically blow this one up, which happened to be a little fog shark. And then I can peek at one. So then I could flip this one over and just see what's going to happen. Something will happen when it gets defeated. Or maybe I would use the gamble, reroll all of my unspent dice, then deal the sum of your total die results to a revealed creature in the line. So maybe I decided I want to flip that over, I want to use this, and now I've done 6 damage to something, so I could get rid of that cliff crab, like so. Then this would move forward, and so on and so on. And that's how this is going to work. You'll be activating your abilities, sometimes flipping them over, sometimes using dice on the cards directly, perhaps like so, to kill monsters, and you're going to try to kill all of them. Now, for every creature that you don't kill, we'll just say that we killed almost everything here, and this one happened to get through. Then what happens is one of the characters, could be this one right here, or could be a different one, would have to damage one of their abilities per creature that went through, and then this would go into a different pile that's going to come back at the very end. The very last battle that you face is going to be similar to what you had before. You'll have some kind of effect, and you'll have a line number, but then all the creatures that got throughout the entire game will then get added to the back of the line, making the final battle a little bit harder. Then you would rinse and repeat. And my apologies, I accidentally skipped over something that is newer in some of the later versions of the game, which is the merchant phase. And this actually happens in between the campfire and going out adventuring. As you play, you'll be getting coins, probably from the campsite, but sometimes from killing different bad guys, which you'll be able to use to buy these items here and power up the different characters. And that's how this game works. But before I jump ahead, let's take a look at how the app works. And I've gone ahead and just turned off all the sound, and I have a game that was in the early goings here, so we'll just jump back in, and it will take me straight into battle, and that's where most of these things are going to be done. You can see what I'm dealing with, and you can see the different dice that I have available. So maybe I would like to take a die right there and just throw it on there and do some damage, and I'll come down to this guy, and I'll put more dice on there, and I've killed it. And as part of the killing of that, I have to exhaust an ability, so there we go, I'll exhaust that. And we keep on going. And you can see you can use your ability, so I'm just going to tap on that, and I'm going to exhaust it, and that will allow me to use this Far Shot ability throughout the game. And again, you can see it's fairly simple how it works out like so. And you'll simply go through, play all the rounds, it does all the shuffling, all the math and everything for you, and keeps track of what's going on, and that's how the app works. So with that said, what do I like about this game? The first thing is, the theme to me is fun. It is a generic fantasy theme, right? You're moving out, you're fighting monsters, you're trying to get across the land to save the land, save the world, whatever. But adding this manning the campfire bit and adding this idea that the monsters are only coming out at night, and so you have to keep the fire brighter in order to allow yourself to actually fight the monsters is really, really clever. There's also some very interesting actions that you can take around the campfire that can really, really help people out as you're moving forward. Obviously, the heal is a very, very important one. It's also interesting to me the way that different characters have different dice, because that gives you more or less mobility when you're in the campsite. So for example, if you were to bring one of the characters who uses D4s into this one, they could never use the heal because they're never going to get to a 6. And it's also harder for them to do the things where you have to get progressively higher dice because they have fewer numbers that they're going to be able to play around with. But at the same time, those characters have really powerful abilities, so it's a really interesting trade-off the way that that works. I really like the way that when you are fighting the monsters, there's a lot of discussion of, well, I could do this if you do this, and gosh, if there's only a way that we could get this one right here before it gets to the front, then we're not going to take this penalty, or maybe we'll get this bonus. And the way you're comboing things together is really fun. It's a very, very good puzzle as you're playing through, and I think it really, really works. And I also think that the characters do enough things that are different that there's not a ton of alpha player syndrome in this game. It can happen, obviously, a little bit, but in general, every time I've played, it's really been a lot of, well, I'm going to do this, and is there a way that you can help me? And then someone says, oh, actually, I can do this thing if I can have a little bit of help. And it really, really works well the way that goes. I like the different abilities that you have, and how each character has 5 different abilities, and they are all powerful in their own way. I also really like that you can just flip one over and hurt yourself to use an ability if you don't want to use your dice, because you need your dice to go out and do the damage on the table. Really, really clever the way that works. I also really like in this particular version the market. In the very first version of the game, there was no market. It wasn't a thing you could do. At least, I don't think so. I no longer have my original version of the game, which I backed on Kickstarter many, many, many moons ago. And I don't know what happened to it. I loaned it to somebody and I never got it back, and I don't remember who it was that I loaned it to. So, oh well. But I don't believe that had the merchant in it, and I really like the addition of the merchant, assuming I'm not insane. But I really like the way the merchant works. I love that, and getting little abilities as you go through the game. In fact, you can even play the merchant, which gives you more merchanty goodness as you're going through. Another thing to particularly single out in this version of the game is the abilities that the characters have are a little more interesting and in-depth. There is, for example, the Corsair, which is what I was demonstrating with, has the ability to throw black powder barrels into the deck when they go to camp, and that just kind of makes things a little more interesting as they show up. There's the ability for the druid to put furry forest critters out there that can help you when they come up. There's the ability of the cavalier to be mounted or unmounted, which changes everything that they can do. Just really clever things that make it more interesting as you played a lot of this game. At the same time, I also like that you can mix and match characters. There is no reason that you can't bring the witch or the wizard from one of the other sets into this one and these into there. And I really like the way that works. There's lots of different ways you can mix up different monsters and bad guys and new things. Very, very interchangeable, and I really like the way that works. And finally, I'm going to highlight the fact that this particular game is a small box. It takes up more space than you think. You're not going to play this on an airplane tray table or one of the little round tables at a coffee shop. You need a little more space than that because you're going to sprawl out a bit, and you always have to have 4 characters. But it is a small box. It all fits in a small box, easy to store, and that is always a winner in my mind when you can have big game in small box. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first one comes to player count. And I think this game really shines at 2 and 3 players, even though I play it quite a bit solo. And the reason for that is, when you play solo, you're managing 4 different characters, and they all have different abilities, and until you really learn it, it can feel kind of slow as you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do. And even when you're actually fighting, you're still using 3 characters at once. And for me, that's just a little bit too much. However, when you play it 2 players, each of you is running 2 characters, and that's satisfying. That's an enjoyable thing. It's not too hard, and it keeps the game moving. When you play 3 characters, that's also really good because you have the 3 characters that you're playing, and then every turn, somebody's main character they have is going to be the one in camp, and so they'll take on the other one, and you just kind of move them around like that. Works really, really well. The problem, though, for me with 4 characters is simply that the camp role is not exciting in the same way that fighting the bad guys is. And also, the camp role, you're done like that. And then you're just kind of sitting there waiting. Yeah, you can give advice and things like that, but it's not as satisfying when you're just kind of stuck in camp and you're manning the fire while everyone else is out there doing the fighting. And so for me, that's a little bit of a knock on it. The next thing I'll say is, with just 1 box, you do start to see the same bad guys over and over again. You know what you're dealing with. To me, I really feel like having a second box is really, and the ability to kind of mix and match those things, I think is really where this is at. So that means you got to get a second box while you're at it. And then the only other thing that I'm going to say here, and I say this often in a lot of games, and it doesn't particularly bother me because I enjoy chaos. I mean, look at this shirt. I enjoy chaos. But the dice can ruin you. It's just the way it goes. You're going to have a turn where you're going to roll your 3d12 and get 1, 2, 1. And suddenly, this big smashy character that you are with these big rolls is suddenly not very effective. And look, that's going to really irritate some people. Again, it's a dice game, so I think you're kind of signing up for that when you play. But again, I always like to point it out, there's not a ton of mitigation. There's some. I was using the Corsair that actually had the ability to do the diary rolls and things like that. But for the most part, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And some people do throw that fit. But all in all, it's a fun game. It's a really nice co-op puzzle, and I really do enjoy it. Now, before I wrap up here, let's talk about the app. The app's great. It's great. It is fast. It is easy. It is simple to figure out. It saves the game for you, move through. It's great. It's a really good implementation. In fact, I highly recommend, if you are at all interested but you're not sure, download the app. Pay the $7 or whatever it is for the app. Try it out. And if you would all enjoy it there, you're really going to like the tactile feel of actually playing on the table. And of course, you get access to different characters that you don't have in the app. But there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.